Hey, Dream Chasers, thank you so much for tuning in to episode 254 of Chasing Dreams. I'm Amy J., your host, and I am so excited to have you here. I have a friend back from the past, from 2017, my friend Daree Nieves. She is back on the show. She was on episode 77 back in February 2017, and I wanted to check in. It's been 5 years. It's time to see how she's doing, and I think you guys will enjoy the lessons if you keep an open mind to the nuggets of wisdom she's about to share. Check it out.
This is Daree Nieves, and you are listening to Chasing Dreams with Amy J.
Yeah, you totally have some VO voice. You totally have that perfect VO voice. Daree, I am so glad that you were able to come on. And as of this recording, essentially like a few days off, I think we're like 7 days off, 5 years from the day your first episode aired. That is wild.
Yep. 5 years. 5 years goes by fast, don't it?
Keep in mind the pandemic is in there too, so did it really go by?
Let's not claim 5 years of a pandemic, but a regular 5 years.
Yes. 5 calendar years have passed, and I wanted to have you back on because you have been doing some. No, I don't want to say wild stuff, but you have been doing a wide variety of things in your life. And I think you described yourself as multi-passionate. And I was like, that's probably accurate. But before we get into that, I want to catch these guys up. It's been 5 years. How are you?
I am doing great. We are here. Let's all remember that, there's a lot of people that aren't here anymore that were here 5 years ago, and they're not, or they were here last year and they're not here anymore, even in February. So I will start with that. I'm here and I'm blessed. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to see you. I wish I could hug you, but I know, how things are. So it's a virtual hug, but I'm doing great. And you're right. A lot has happened. It in a way it goes by fast. I think it's a perspective. You know what I mean? Sometimes if you aren't enjoying life so much, it's going to go a lot slower. It's going to drag out, but if you have a zest for life, if you look forward to things, if you enjoy what you do, then that changes it a little bit. And, looking around at your kids or your nieces and nephews growing up, that also lets you know that time is flying and it waits for no one. So I can't complain.
I mean, the kids growing up, what an indicator, right? Where you're like, when did they go from my ankle to my knee to where they are right now? I'm like blinking and it's happening.
And there's nothing like a good old Christmas card, a photo Christmas card to let you know, okay, I'm old.
And you look back at it, right? So I guess one of the questions I have for you is looking back on 5 years, what is one thing you're happy that has changed for you?
One of the things that I'm happy has changed is just that I am allowing myself to do things or not do them and be okay with it, and I was kidding a second ago about being old, but I am older. We all are older after 5 years. And I have this like perfectionist mindset that's kind of like, you do this, you make sure it's excellent and it's perfect, and you finish everything you start, and and that's a good thing to do. That's not wrong. But like I was kind of rigid and really hard on myself about like, I got to get these things done. Like even if you think about like podcasting, something that a lot of people have jumped on in the past 5 years, we were already doing it. You and I have been doing it. And it's like, can I miss an episode, or can I miss a week posting, or can I, you know what I mean? It's like, there's so much pressure and this hustle culture and this proving mentality to just go and always do things and push out this content constantly. And it's okay. I've come to a place, and you can do this at any age. I've come to a place where I'm kind of like, you know what? I'm okay with maybe starting something and saying, nah, I don't want to do that anymore. Or I'm going to put that aside and I'm not going to beat myself up about it, not finishing it. And that's not to say that certain people or certain situations don't require or beg for accountability, because obviously some do. There's other places in my life where maybe I do need that accountability. I do need somebody to check me and, make sure I'm on track. But there's some other things where I'm kind of like allowing myself to slowly loosen the reins and be like, you know what? This doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to finish everything you start. You don't have to do all the things that you see, information overload and sensory overload. It's like, just because you can do something doesn't mean that you necessarily should. You don't have to do all the things. You don't have to keep up with the Joneses or the Kardashians or any other last name. You know what I mean? And I'm just one person. So I'm just going to keep it right there. I could probably go on for another 10 minutes about that, but I'm just going to keep that right there.
I just got to play that right on point. Oh my gosh. People's mental health, I think, has suffered because of this hustle culture, because of how much glorification has been made of hustling, right? And the fact that you have to do everything perfectly, and that you have to, if you don't post on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, if you don't email your list once every day, if you don't email your list once a week, this is the only way for you to succeed. And if you don't do it, don't call yourself an entrepreneur. There is no one way to do it. And it's like, whoa, that's intense, right? And how quickly people mark themselves as failures because they miss, or will wear themselves out because they have to do it. And I think, the fact that you and I hustle, but we do it in a different way, right? We're doing that thing that people don't like to do. They're like, you're not really a hustler because y'all have day jobs. Day jobs. What? That's right. We said it. We got jobs. And it's crazy because I think, my day job allows me to take care of my family. My day job allows me to, have insurance. My day job allows me to have these passions that I have outside. And so what do you think about the fact that you're not just doing a day job, like you do a lot of things? What is your mindset on that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sometimes certain circles, groups, whatever, could make you feel or want to make you feel like you're not a legit entrepreneur unless you do it full time. And my hats off and my respect go to everyone who's a full-time entrepreneur. Don't get it twisted. I know it is not a little small thing to go out on your own and not have a safety net and all that. However, it doesn't mean that the things that I choose to do in my entrepreneurship are any less than. I'm like learning new skills and stuff. So like one of the things I noticed, y'all, Amy does this wonderful, beautiful, like start of the year letter to everyone. And one of the things that she mentioned was a new job that she got last year. Well, I got a new job last year at the same place. So we're coworkers and we didn't even know it. And so in that, I say, like, I actually, prior to getting that job, I was in the same place for 22 years. Now, I wasn't physically in the same place. I wasn't like working in the same building. I actually worked from home most of that time. And I moved around in different cities, but it's like that whole 2 decades, I wasn't just, and this is not wrong, I'm just telling my story. Those 2 decades, I wasn't just doing that work, which was writing work. I learned a podcast during that time. I learned voiceover in that time. I got certified as a life coach during that time. I did lots of different things. I did a lot of speaking engagements.
Author.
Oh yeah, author. Yeah, I forget some of them. There's so many hats. I forget them all.
I'm gonna tell them for you. Author.
Yeah. So it's like that was a thing that I had to prove when it was time to get the new job, because it's like, ma'am, this is nice that you have these writing skills and your resume is nice, your portfolio is nice. But what have you been doing? Are you a one-trick pony? Do you know how to do anything else? Have you been in prison for 2 years and not realized all the technological things that have happened since the 90s? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Yes, person. I do, because of all the things that I just said. So even if you're not doing all these side hustles or whatever, like either way, it's fine. It's okay to make your money how you want to make it, having fun, using skills and talents, learning new things. And as I just mentioned, like starting something and deciding, that's not for me, and just moving on from it. So yeah, I like enjoy everything that I do, all the titles, all the things. And being multi-passionate, to me, that's a word that I heard some other people say. I didn't make it up. I think that it's more common than people want to say. Like, usually that first bit of advice you get as an entrepreneur, somewhere in there, somebody's going to tell you, listen, focus on one thing, do it really, really well. And then if you want, maybe you could branch out to other things. And that usually is a successful kind of thing. So I don't disagree with that logic. And that's what I've done. I try not to overwhelm people when I meet them and be like, yeah, I'm an author, I'm a speaker, because they're going to glaze over. And I would, if they did that to me, I would too. So I try to be relevant to,
Yeah,
who I'm talking to, but, we all have lots of hobbies and interests. All of us do.
it's interesting because I think when you say hobbies and interests, people think also that if you have a passion, you automatically have to be an entrepreneur for it. Right? If I love comic books, I need to find a way to make money from that. Why? You don't have to do that, guys. You can enjoy something and let it just be a hobby. You can enjoy something and just let it be. I mean, I think the one thing that you said that I really want to hone in on was try different things. I don't think people do that enough, right? I mean, what is something that you've tried and decided it wasn't for you, but didn't regret?
Just broadly speaking, really broadly speaking, not even really entrepreneurship, watching small children at church. It's not for me, probably any setting, but that is a place I actually haven't been to church since the pandemic. Honestly, I've been watching it on my screen. But before that, I learned pretty quickly that I just do not have the patience for small kids. And I was told back in the day, before I became a mom, I was told, it's going to be different when you have kids. You'll find the patience. You'll be a different person. Didn't happen. It did not happen. The girl that came out of my body gets on my freaking nerves. Okay. I love her. I don't regret her, but she gets on my nerves sometimes. And I don't have any more patience with her than I do other people's kids. I really don't. I don't have the favoritism there. It's just, one of my weak spots. People are like, okay, well, talking about jobs and interviewing, what are some of your strengths and weaknesses? My weaknesses is that I'm impatient. I just want people to do what they're supposed to do. I told you to do something, or you told me to do something, I did it. I don't want to be babysitting. And that's one of the reasons that I don't want to be a manager, by the way. I do not want to go around telling grown adults what they need to be doing. But as a sidebar.
No. We're going to hold on to that for a second, because what you just said, I don't want to be a manager. Some people will say that's crazy talk. What do you mean you don't want to be a manager? What else would you do? And people can't accept that, there are different schools of thought, guys. That is allowed. There are people with different mindsets and mentalities, and that's fine. Not everyone wants to be a manager. Not everyone wants to be a leader. Not everyone, as Daree said, should be. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so do you find pushback when people ask, do you want to be a manager, or kind of elevate yourself? You know what I mean?
Some people, and I don't know that they're listening to this podcast, because I think a lot of people that listen to you understand the whole entrepreneurship journey, but there are still a lot of people that don't. And they're just like, you're not going to be secure unless you actually have a job. And I just think that people that have that school of thought often believe that this is the path. You do this, and then you do this, and then you do this. And if you want to be promoted and you want to climb up the ladder, this whole individual contributor thing, that's nice. But that's for people that are, I don't know, lazy or something. I don't know what they're thinking because obviously ICs are not lazy. But when they have that mentality, they're like, this is the path to do this thing.
Yeah.
And you got to do these things, boom, boom, boom. And then you'll be successful and you'll make more money and more money and more money and more money. And, you know, I think that you can make money whatever level you want to or not. You can be, you know, a hobbyist and not make money off of something. And you can go the other way with it, or you can be in the middle. And so for me, occasionally I've heard pushback, but, you know, most people, when I tell them that I don't want to, you know, go around telling adults what to do, which I know it's more to it than that. But when I put it that way, they're like, oh yeah, I know what you're saying. Another big reason that I personally don't want to manage, and by the way, I have the right to change my mind, but I've been feeling this way for a long time, probably won't. I also don't want to sit in meetings for 6 hours a day or 8 hours or however long, because managers usually work more than 8 hours. So yeah, I don't want to be in meetings for 8 hours a day, every day. I'm good.
And that is okay. Like for everybody listening, that is totally fine. It's how she feels. And she has the right to change her mind. I think that's the part that people don't realize is you can change your mind. How you felt 5 years ago can be different from how you feel today. And I think people struggle with that because, and we talked about this a little bit off the record, but I think there's so many times that society and culture, workplace culture in particular, defines what the path is and say, hey, this is what's normal. This is what you should be doing. This is the, like you said, A, B, C, do this, 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 and that's how you will find success. When it's like, well, how do you know? My success definition is different from someone else's success definition. And I think we put too much credence into, I'm not trying to cause a riot or start some kind of like thing. Amy is starting a siege and she's overtaking the country. No, please calm down, everyone. But I think that we put so much faith in traditions and societal norms and stereotypes, some which are worthwhile having. But I think we focus on it so much we don't think about the alternative possibilities, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a problem when you try to tell people like this is how you should live your life or how you should do things. Staying on the work portion for a quick second, I would say that this is manifested greatly right now when it comes to working from home. A lot of people were not used to working from home. I have been working from home for 17 years. So whatever is going on with remote, I know about it. However, a lot of people didn't get hip to this until about 2 years ago. And so it's like now, supposedly, you know, if we can get through these variants, supposedly people are going back to work, at least in corporate America, who weren't. And so I find it very interesting that so many corporations are making people go back to work when A, they were productive at home and they were fine with it. And B, their position and their roles and duties will not suffer from not going to the workplace and being around other people. Now, of course, there's some jobs where you have to actually go in and that makes total sense. Obviously, being a receptionist someplace, you're probably going to be in person. You know what I mean? You're going to have to greet people or whatever. But for a lot of us, what I'm really talking about are people that were doing the work at home. They were productive. Maybe they were handling family obligations and things like that. There were a lot of things that have happened since the last time you interviewed me, where it was very important that I worked from home. At first, it started off and I was like, this is great. And I have flexibility and I love it. And this is conducive to my lifestyle and my personality. But then certain things changed with my family where I had to become a caregiver for a while. My spouse was really, really ill. He had a lot of doctor's appointments, things like that. And me working in an office would not have worked at all. It would have not been a thing. So there was no point in me even trying to look for a job when, you know, that year or two where he was sick. And then he eventually passed away. And so it's like, of course, the pandemic had not happened yet. and a lot of people were still working in the office. But I think employers need to think about, there's different family situations. If your employee has been productive, if they've been doing what they're supposed to do, attending whatever meetings, getting things done, don't make them go back to work if they don't want to, or if they're not comfortable, or a myriad of other reasons. Don't make them. Give them an option. Yeah. We have to realize that just because we have a little bit of normalcy now in 2022, we're never going back to 2019. Ever. I don't care if you're talking about school. I don't care what you're talking about. We're never going back to 2019 status.
We've learned.
So these companies, I'm just going to say it, these old white men, okay, they just got to get with the program. Okay, we're not having it. And guess what? The generations after us, Amy, are definitely not having it. They're not just going to do things because it's what you're supposed to do, or it's what we've always done.
We've learned, right? I mean, in 2 years, for how many years before that, we were told you have to be, the only way for this business to operate is if you are here in this brick building 9 to 5. And the pandemic has shown us that's not the case, because a lot of y'all had to pivot when you were forced to pivot, and you made it work. And so now, to your point, a lot of people are forcing their employees to come back, and that's sad. Because I mean, I'm blessed enough to be able to work remotely, right? So yay me, but I still feel for those who have to go back when it's been proven for 2 years plus that you don't have to. Now, coming in on occasion, I get that. I get it, right? But I think it goes to show that we've been so focused on one way of thinking. We're not seeing the other options or possibilities around us. And I think that's what people miss, especially in work, but also in your personal life. I think people think that there's only one way. And, I've said it before. I'm going to say it one more time. There is no recipe or one formula to life. There's not. You do not have to get married by 30. You do not have to have kids by 35. You do not even have to have kids if you don't want them. And if you want to have kids, you do not own, the only option isn't natural birth, foster care, adoption.
That's right.
I'm going to say it, pets. And I just think people limit themselves because this is what previous generations have told us and taught us, for good or for bad, never with malintent. I think it's just, especially parents, they want the best for you and they think it's the only way. And that's why I want to say this, because I think generationally we have to put a stop to that or help with that. I mean, for you and your daughter, how do you help her as she's navigating her future? Do you give her advice and stuff?
Yeah, of course. My daughter is 18 and a half. I think that they stopped doing the half thing after a while, but when they're little, they do. I'm just going to give it to her. She's 18 and a half, and she's in her first year of college, and she's doing really well. She's actually only about an hour and change from the house. She's not that far away, but she's not here, so I do miss her. And sometimes we'll FaceTime or whatever, but when we talk, I talk to her about, a lot of things that I talk to her about is not really about school. It's about things like she has one roommate and 2 other suite mates. So I talk to her about, friendships and other girls and stuff. And I talk to her about, finances, things that are actually going to matter past college. Obviously her studies are very important. She's a biology major. She can't play around, but that is not her weakness. And so I don't have to go over her. I have to still go to her to make her bed, but I don't have to go to her for, doing her schoolwork and studying for tests.
Right.
So when I talked to her about finances, we had a conversation when she was here in January before the break ended. And I talked to her, she said, I want to get a credit card. And I'm just like, okay, you're probably going to need to use a credit card. And this is a fine time to get one. And I thought back to when I was first in college for the first year, and I had a Citibank Visa card. Amy, the credit limit was $500. And when I say that, it's like, okay, it's $500. No, I was 18 and I had a free $500.
You could have said 5,000, right?
I blew it up but it took so long for me to pay it back. I had a job. I was going to college and I had a job where I was making $5 an hour. This was like, 95, 96. I'm making $5 an hour. It took a while for me to pay off that $500 and I had to learn quick. No one taught me about credit cards and compound interest. Now, compound interest can work for you on the flip side when you're investing, but of course that ain't what we're talking about right now. The credit cards are working against you. So I went through, talked to her about all that, broke it down for, you can buy a shirt, you can go to Forever 21, buy you a nice little shirt. It's like $20 and then you don't pay for it for a while and it'll end up costing you $50, $60 extra because you just paid the minimum or whatever. Basic stuff. But like you said, a lot of the older generation or certain families, even not just the older generation, may not have taught us all these life skills. She also feels some disappointment sometimes. And I think everyone listening or watching us can relate to this, is that sometimes, there's certain friends or acquaintances that you find are wishy-washy. They don't follow through with things, we're going to go do this. And then you can't depend on them. And it's not just a girl thing, but this is something that she's been dealing with a lot with girls because she's not dating at this time. And so it's like, these are hard lessons that you got to learn when you're young, or they'll just keep beating you in the head later, thinking about, feelings of loneliness or unworthiness, or, how come, why aren't my friends actually like being my friends?
But these aren't conversations that were normal, or I won't say normal. That's a bad adjective for it. That weren't as commonplace for us growing up, right? And that's, I think, an amazing thing that you're doing. You're taking the lessons you had, and you're like, you know what? Let's flip this. I wish somebody had this conversation with me. I wish I could have been a sounding board, because I think what you said about life skills is so true. It's so true. People cut their teeth in college with learning life skills in a hard and dangerous way sometimes, with how it is and what they are. And there's one observation I had. I want to get your thoughts on it, that I think does that people in their 20s, late teens, I think this does them in. It's an observation I've had, which is and people don't realize it, but arrogance is what drives it home. Your arrogance that this won't affect me. I can handle it. I will do better than the people who have been before me. I got this. That arrogance, even though it's not called arrogance, it's in your head, right? I remember getting a credit card and thinking, I got this. I'm good. I'm good. I'll pay it off. I'll do this. I know better than everybody before me. Everybody who warned me about credit cards, everyone who said something about it. I got it. Arrogance. That is what I think is the killer of people in their late teens, 20s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, those who disregard people that are older and seasoned and experienced, it's going to be a problem. Now, don't get me wrong. All of us are going to have to make our own mistakes with certain things, but how deep, how hard do you want to fall? You know what I'm saying? Before you have to bounce back, because the harder the fall, the bigger and longer it'll take to bounce back. And, that's actually, Amy, one of the reasons that when I wrote my first book that I mentioned earlier, it's called What's Wrong with Me. It's a memoir. I took different stories out of my journals because I've been journaling since I was 12. And one of the reasons that I wrote it was to speak to my younger self and my daughter and the other girls that are out here dealing with issues with self-esteem and self-love and whatnot, and toxic relationships and boundaries. But I also wanted to do it because I can't think of like one single mentor that I had when I was growing up to ask these life things to. So I didn't have an older sister. I had aunts, but they all lived far away. Yeah. I had two grandmothers, but we weren't close. Their personalities weren't the I'm baking cookies and I'm sitting here and talking to you and spending time with you type personality. It just wasn't. So I was like, let me write this book, which will kind of be somewhat of a guiding force and mentorship for anyone that picks it up, especially young people that pick it up and read it. And I think that when you talk about that arrogance with some of the younger generation, they just don't realize the wealth of wisdom that comes from this experience when you lived more than 2 decades. Like the wealth of wisdom, like I wish, I just mentioned my grandmothers that didn't really talk to me. I am sure they had so many things that they could have taught me if they, but they didn't. And so, that is something anyone that's listening, please do not disregard the elderly or the people that are older than you, that know better than you, even if it's just people that are like 5 steps further in their journey than you are. You know what I'm saying? They don't even have to be older, but wisdom is not like just hanging around, just like common sense is just not hanging around. It's not common. So when you run into wisdom, sit with it, drink it, soak it in, like just keep it, because it's rare to come by. It's hard to come by.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think it's a spot on observation. I think that people don't. I know people are like arrogance. I'm not arrogant. It's over self-confidence. It's there, right? And the fact that you fought me on the word arrogance is kind of telling. If you're listening, right? Just a heads up.
You're proving my point.
The point with that. Daree, I wanted to ask you a question because you are now into voiceovers. You have an amazing VO voice. If y'all didn't play back that beginning, play back the drop that she made. That's a VO voice. All right. And so it's one of your new passions, right? As someone who's multi-passionate. When people are trying to figure out what is their passion and how they're trying to figure that part out. Yeah. One, how do you figure out what your passions are? Then how do you figure out how to go about it?
Mm-hmm. Now, if you're a nerd like me, you're going to take some surveys. Like there's these different like career inventory interest surveys and stuff. I like that kind of stuff, but I'm not going to give you homework today. I'm just going to say, do this first. This is nothing new really. Think about the things that bring you joy. Amy was talking earlier about how you don't have to make money off of your hobbies, and you don't, but you could start with thinking about your hobbies and what else do you like to do? Or what have you seen someone do on TV or at someone's house or something, and you thought that looked interesting? Because whenever I talk about VO, people are like, how did you get into that? Like, it's not like a common thing that you just like go to school.
Exactly.
And do that. You don't go to school. You don't go to college for that. You do training, but you don't go to college. So I would say, think about things that bring you joy and that you have fun doing, things that you've always wanted to learn about. Maybe you've like put off stuff, like you started doing something, you put it off. My sister decided that she wanted to get back into playing the flute, and she just turned 40. Like, it's never too late to go back and explore things. You know what I'm saying? And she talks about this on our podcast, but I'll just say real quick. She got to her first lesson, which was virtual, and she got on. And the person that was teaching was like, okay, so you got son, daughter, like what's going on? She's like, oh no, I don't have a kid. It's me. I'm the one that wants to learn flute. And she was like, oh my gosh, I've never had an adult student. So like, don't let things, just because it seems like maybe that ship has sailed or that you're too old or whatever, you're not too old to learn things. You're never too old to learn things, and you're never too old to have fun and to be happy. So if nothing else, don't go into trying to discover your passion thinking, well, like this has got to work, or I've got to make money off this, right? Just go into it like, this is fun. Let me explore this some more. Let me see what other options are out there, because again, we're not subscribing to the whole thing of there's only one way to do this and there's only one path. So just be easy with it. And if you do decide that you want to try something or pursue something, be persistent long enough to give it a chance. The reason I say that is because I don't want to say be persistent and commit to it and never stop, because I told you 20 minutes ago that I just gave myself permission not to finish things. Right. But you also don't want to quit too early either. You want to give it a chance, because when something is really fulfilling, usually it doesn't always come very smoothly. It doesn't necessarily have to be filled with strife and drama, but it doesn't necessarily come with no effort. You're going to have to do something. You're going to have to invest time watching videos or reading something or taking lessons or spending money, but do whatever you're going to do long enough to give it a chance. That could be a month, it could be 6 months, but don't just do something for a week and be like, oh no, this is crap, this is whack, I'm not doing this. And I was stupid to even think that I would be good at this. Like, no, we're not going to talk like that. We're going to give it a chance and have fun. Okay. We're going to have fun. Life is too short. Have fun.
And the interesting thing about that is I can't emphasize it enough because I love swimming. I learned swimming at 38, something like that. And I first tried at the YMCA. So you have me at this age with, I think she was like 12, a 12-year-old being taught by a 17-year-old volunteer lifeguard person who was teaching. And I'm like, well, this is all right. This is what it is. But I didn't really learn. And I was like, oh, it wasn't meant for me. But then I found, I really wanted to learn. I'm trying to remember if I can remember the name of the swimming. I can't remember it, but I found a private instructor who teaches a specific style of swimming. And I went for 6 lessons. He taught me in 6 lessons. It was the best decision ever. And I love it. And I hate that the pandemic happened just as I learned it, because now I can't find a pool to go to to practice. But I have no doubt that I still know how to swim. And so the idea, guys, is you got to keep trying. And if it's not working out, maybe it's where you are. Try someone different before giving up necessarily. But to that point, Daree, how do you figure out what to do, right? For people who want to go to med school and doctors, there's a set path, right? You got to get certified. You got to do all that stuff. That is a societal norm. That's good. Okay. You don't want anybody just cutting you up. So we like that. But then there are other things like these passions and stuff. How do you figure out, for people who are listening, like, I love to do this. I don't know how to do it though. What would you recommend to them?
Well, you usually can't go wrong with YouTube University. I want to say that, like, anyone, of course, can make a video and put it anywhere, but I just cannot. I'm just astounded every day. I watch YouTube every day at the things that pop up in my recommendations. I'm like, why are they recommending this to me? I've never wanted to do that or try woodworking. What? But it's like, you can find almost anything on there. And so I would say that's a very low barrier to entry to jump on a place like YouTube and look at people, not just any old body, but people that seem to be real, people that don't seem to make up all those steps like you just said, but people that just will talk to you like we are and let you know, like, this is my path. It doesn't mean it's going to be your path, but kind of give you ideas on some of the things you might have to do and what things are really like. Another thing you can do, if you, I love you. My favorite social media right now is LinkedIn, even though it's like, some people think it's very stuffy and boring. I really do like it because on LinkedIn, you don't necessarily have to know people if you want to. I mean, you could connect with whomever and they may or may not connect back, but you're going to be able to still see stuff with people that you're not connected to, see posts and videos and things like that. And that is a business platform that is for networking. So it's not an odd thing to go to a stranger and ask them about certain things. And so whether it's LinkedIn or something else, what I'm getting at is like informational interviews.
Yeah.
Maybe a time. I don't like necessarily the thought or the phrase of picking your brain, even though it's kind of what it is. So you have to be careful with this. Some people will talk to you and, it'll be fine. You can have the coffee, the lunch date, whatever, and it'll be fine. And for other people, depending on what it is you want to know, you might have to pay. You know what I'm saying? Because time is valuable. I used to be the first way, and now I'm the second way. So it used to be when I started, I started to get into voiceover right after the last time that we spoke. So like March of 2017. And once I got good at it and I started to do commercials and do things where people could physically see or hear rather that I was doing stuff, then man, pop it in the DMs like crazy. That's a way to know that you actually might know something, is if you put something out there and people are like, and they just drawn to it and they're in your DMs. So they got into my DMs and I would like talk to them on the phone for a while, or we would Zoom. I would answer questions in the DMs in written form, whatever. And it got to be too much. Yeah. It got to be to the point where it was not too much as far as giving the information and like, I can't do it anymore. But as far as the amount of time and energy that I was giving off, and people were just being like normal, like, I just want to know what this is like. How do you get into this? I've always wanted to do this. Yeah. Okay. Everything we just talked about. So that's not a bad thing. But because they're just kind of dipping their toe in the water, they're not really sure what's what. I'm using a lot more energy for someone that is nowhere near committed to wanting to do that thing. Same thing when I first wrote my book. Everybody was on me. Okay, I want to learn self-publishing. I want to write a book. How do you do that? I made an e-course. I did all this stuff. And that's usually what I end up doing is I'll either start coaching people or I will make an e-course and I'll say, listen, here's the e-course. I'll make YouTube videos and I'll be like, here's some free videos. Yeah.
You're one person. I mean, it's hard. And guys, just to be clear, I mean, nobody owes you an answer. So if they're helping you, it's out of the kindness of their heart. And if they're charging, there's a reason for that, right? Nobody owes you their time to answer questions. So keep that in mind also as you're doing it, and just be tactful in how you ask. Mm-hmm. I think something else don't come correct.
There's usually free information like all over the place. And the things that aren't free, 9 times out of 10, there's a reason why that information is not free. There's a reason why there's a paywall. There's a reason why you got to pay for that webinar or that coaching session that's one-on-one instead of, getting the cheaper price for the group coaching. You've got to think about all of the steps that entrepreneur took to get to where they're at. I am by no means the best that ever did it. I've only been doing this for 5 years, but I'm good. And I spent a lot of time and money with training and stuff to get to this point. I didn't just say, I really want to do this. And then I just started doing it. I was just like everybody else. I didn't know how to get started. I actually like 10, 15 years easily, Amy, where I had it in the back of my head. I want to do VO, but I don't know how. And then just did all this other stuff because I didn't know how to do it. And podcasting, which we all love, is one of the things that kind of pushed me towards trying to find that answer, because I'm like, okay, now I'm used to hearing my own voice, editing, doing all this audio stuff. Voiceover's got to be similar to this in some way. I've got to be able to bridge this, take this jump some kind of way.
Sure.
And you can. And it's so funny because like full circle moment, I was thinking about this when I knew we were going to do this interview. And I'm like, you know what? Not only did I meet Amy at a podcasting conference, Podcast Movement. It was the second year of Podcast Movement, I believe. But when the thing that got me set off to start voiceover in my adulthood was a session that you were in. You moderated the speaker. Her name was Carrie Olson. You introduced her in the session, and she was talking about how to do voiceover. And that was like, I think 2016.
Yeah,
and I'm like, or 2015, 2016. And I was like, yeah, I want to do this. And Carrie Olson, if you don't know her, she's this little Black woman, she's very sweet, very, very, calm and everything, but she coaches e-learning voiceover, and she knows what she's talking about. And I actually ended up meeting her again at other conferences after that. So it's like, full circle moment there. It's like, you can start with something and then you have to like take some steps.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just try it out. Just see what happens. Everyone's path is going to be a little bit different, but share information. I am a part of a mastermind group. We meet every month. Maybe there might be 1 month in the summer where we skip because everybody's everywhere, but typically every month. and there's 5 or 6 of us, and we talk about the voiceover business, but we also talk about our lives and stuff and whatever else we feel like talking about. And you need that. You need a support group. You need a community in some kind of way, whether it's, using an online social media group or something like what we do on Skype. You need a community to support you, whether you're like full on in the business or you're just trying to figure out what you want to do next. You need that community.
100%. I think it's people who understand what you're trying to do and have that same mentality, because your family will love you, your family will support you, but they don't understand, right? So you can't really go to them. And so, it's an interesting place. And Carrie is a friend of the show. She's been on just like you. She's awesome. She really is. Daree, before I let you go, I got to ask the question. So hold on. To be intentional. All right, we're going to get intentional with this specifically. What is one thing you would tell not podcasters, but dream chasers to do today to chase their dreams?
The one thing that I would say, and this is so crazy because I just told y'all I'm not patient, but I'm not patient with other people. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with yourself. You might try to do something or start chasing a dream, and it seems like everything is getting in the way. Work is calling, the kids are calling, things are happening in the family that are out of your control. Things are going to happen. It's life. But don't let that stop you. Be patient with it. You're not on a time schedule. I know some people have 5-year plans, 10-year plans. This is where I'm going to be when I'm 30, when I'm 40, when I'm 50, this is where I'm going to be. And that's great. But you don't have to make a time-stamped plan for your dream. I do think it's important to not just say whatever, but you also can be patient with yourself and say, you know what? This didn't happen in the last 6 months or in 2021 or 2020 the way I wanted it to, but it's going to happen. If I want it to happen, it's going to happen. You know what I mean? And if anything, those obstacles that seem to be popping up, to me, that's a sign that you're on the right path, actually. It's a sign, in my opinion, that maybe you should continue on, because there's some forces in this world that don't want us to be happy and fulfilled. So just continue on, be steadfast, commit to your happiness, and be patient with yourself.
Well, shoot, I can't wrap it up better than that. Daree, you are amazing. I'm so glad we were able to reconnect and get you back on the show. How can these guys find you to learn more about you or to connect if they want?
Yes, you can find me on whatever social media platform I'm on. I use all the same handles. So whether it's Twitter, Instagram, wherever I'm at, it's the same, which is at Daree Allen, DareeAllen. It is, this month is like really hyped up for Valentine's Day, and Self-Love Day is actually the day before that. So I'm going to just throw a shout out. I have a free resource about 10 ways to know that you love yourself. And that is at kickingitwithdaree.com. There's a little menu at the top that says resources, and that's where all my free resources are. But I mean, my show is there. A whole bunch of stuff you can find at kickingitwithdaree.com. So thanks, Amy, for having me and for chatting it out with me.
Thank you. And there you have it, Dream Chasers. That was Daree Allen Nieves. I love her. I do. I'm so glad I was able to get her back on the show. Did you catch all those nuggets of wisdom? Did you? If not, they are all over on the show notes page, which you can find at amyj21.com/episode 254. That's episode 254. All right, Dream Chasers, until next time, remember, don't stop. Keep chasing.